Hello and welcome to another episode of the WEM Video Academy. Today we are going to have a look at using a very important component in the interaction template editor, the adaptive columns component. The adaptive columns component is an essential part of making your WEM applications responsive and compatible with various screen sizes. Let's take this simple flowchart as a starting point. We see an interaction node featuring 4 panel components below each other. We would like to present these panels side by side, but in such a way that they will not use more horizontal space than will fit on a desktop, tablet, or mobile phone screen. In the old days of website design, we would use HTML tables for creating a screen layout. Although we still have a table component in our template editor, and for a good reason, it is now a bad practice to use tables for layout purposes. Table components are not responsive and may not always look good on smaller screens. For this purpose, we offer the adaptive columns component, which, as the name says, will adapt itself to different screen sizes. Let's drag an adaptive columns component from the left top of the layout group into our template. We see that the component opens with 2 columns by default. In the property panel on the right-hand side of the screen, we see a little table showing 2 6s next to each other. What does that mean? The WEM interaction node templates are based on Bootstrap, a CSS framework for developing responsive and mobile-first websites. Bootstrap divides the width of a web page into 12 virtual columns. The content on the web page can then be configured to consume between 1 and 12 of these columns. The current component is divided in 2 columns of 6, meaning 6 out of 12, or 50% of the total screen width. We can easily add columns by clicking the little dots on the top border of the component. Now we have changed the component to 4 columns of 3 out of 12, or 25% of the screen width each. If we now drag the 4 panel components into the 4 columns and preview the interaction node, we see that the panel components will show next to each other. However, the columns do not have the correct width. This is because one of the panels is too wide to fit within 25% of the screen width. In order to optimize the view, we can change the ratio between the columns. Since the second panel needs more space, we can increase the width of that column against the other ones. For instance, we can set the division to either 2, 4, 3, 3, or for example 2, 6, 2 and 2. When refreshing preview, we can see the columns assuming their new widths. Another application of adaptive columns is to reduce the width of content in case of large screens. Take this alert component for instance, with some text on board. Previewing this alert component will show the text in a very wide container, which makes it difficult to read. We can do what paper newspapers do, display text in columns to make the page more readable. So let's drag another adaptive columns component to the template. Now, however, we will first delete the second column by clicking the 3-dot label and pressing the delete button. Then, instead of changing column widths, we will now set margins to either side of the single column, like this. We will drag the text alert into the column. We will save the template, and we will preview the results. Now you will see a much more comfortable layout for this paragraph. Now for the best bit. You may have noticed the 4 tabs in the property pane. In addition to the 12-column division, Bootstrap categorizes screen widths in 4 sizes: large or LG, medium or MD, small or SM, and extra small or XS. The exact numbers you will learn later, but as a rule of thumb, you could remember that large equals desktops, medium equals tablets held in horizontal direction, small equals tablets in vertical direction, and extra small is for smartphones. When clicking the tabs, you will see the adaptive columns component changing size in the modeler. Now we can set the same column divisions that we chose for large for the other sizes. Since the 6 out of 12 width for the large column was tight already, we should give that column more room in the medium-sized screen. Let's change it to 8 out of 12. Now we see something new happen. The sum of the widths is now 14, which is larger than 12. This means the overflow will be moved to a new row in the adaptive columns component. In the small screen, we can take that even further and change to a 4, 8, 6, 6 layout, for instance. While in extra small, we can set the component to its maximum width, 12 for each column. This means effectively that each column will take the full screen width for itself, and the 4 columns are displayed stacked on top of each other. So how can we check the layout of the various screen sizes if we do not have smartphones and tablets available? There is an easy way to do this in the browser. Click the F12 key on your keyboard for most browsers, or click the option Inspect Element from your right-click mouse menu while pointing anywhere in the screen. You will now see the developer pane appearing at the right-hand side of the screen. If you are not able to display the developer pane, you could also set your entire browser to non-maximized, and then use the right-hand border of the window. Pay no attention to the content of the developer pane, but concentrate on the divider line. We can easily drag the line to the left to simulate a smaller screen. Most browsers will even show the resulting screen width in pixels, which you can see at the top of this divider line. Although this way of viewing is not as good as testing on an actual device, it will give you a really good first impression of how your application will render on different screens. Now for an extra feature in the Adaptive Columns component. Suppose we would like to make certain content appear only on a desktop screen, tablet screen, or smartphone screen. For this purpose, we can use the Hide Column feature, using the eye icon on the right-hand side. In this example, you see 4 Adaptive Columns components with the texts as shown. We will hide the first component in all views except large by clicking the I button. We do this in the Medium tab, in the Small tab, and in the Extra Small tab, while also making the columns wider in smaller screens. We have already prepared the other 3 components in the same way. Now, when using the screen divider after refresh, keeping your eye on the yellow label at the top of the screen, we will see the content adapt to the screen size: horizontal tablet, vertical tablet, and smartphone. And the other way around. And that concludes our video. We hope you enjoyed it. Please leave your feedback in the comments below and share the video with your colleagues and friends. We hope to see you soon again in the WEM Video Academy.